This is the IFES podcast. I'm Laura Osiu. Kazakhstan's parliament recently approved a referendum for a general vote on changing the constitution to allow President Nazarbayev to serve another 9 years, foregoing the scheduled presidential election of 2012. This move will allow Kazakhstan's only president since it declared independence from the Soviet Union to remain in power, without having to fend off any challengers in an electoral arena. Anthony Bowyer, IFES Program Manager for the Caucasus and Central Asia, talks to us about this referendum and what it might mean for the country and the region. Anthony, this referendum was allegedly started by the people. To what degree is it really a citizens' initiative?
This initiative was started by an interest group that began to collect signatures near the end of December of 2010. This is a group that certainly is made up of people loyal to the president who would like to see him remain in office for the next 9 years. Difficult to assess how much of a people's initiative it is. We know that signatures have been allegedly gathered here over the last 2 weeks to the tune of 5.1 million, which is roughly half of the number of registered voters in the country, an astonishing number. More to the point, based on the criteria of the referendum and initiative process, these signatures have to be gathered equally from Kazakhstan's 14 oblasts and 2 major cities. So 120,000 are needed. That's all that's needed. If you divide those up, it's about 12,500 per region. To gather that many, let alone 5.1 million, in so short a time seems rather extraordinary. We have some evidence that there have been people working for state enterprises who have been compelled to sign this list. But it's difficult to imagine that so many people, again, let alone 120,000, have signed on to this initiative. It certainly is possible. So to the extent, can we say it's the initiative of the majority or of an interest group of party loyalists? That's something that remains to be discussed.
What makes this latest attempt at extending President Nazarbayev's term in office different from previous attempts?
Well, the referendum is a tool that's been used before to modify the constitution in Kazakhstan, and this is another case where that would have to be done. Essentially, to allow him to forego the election scheduled for 2012. This effort would essentially allow him to serve as president for life. Now, the issue of term limits has already been dealt with. That has been already removed. There is no limit to the number of terms the president can serve. To this point, however, he did have to participate in elections, at least nominally. By removing this, essentially it guarantees him a free path to serving until he turns 80 years old.
How might this affect the other countries in the region?
We have a number of elections coming up in Central Asia for the next couple of years, presidential elections. For example, I believe Uzbekistan next year, Kyrgyzstan certainly this year. I don't think that's going to be particularly affected. However, we have elections and presidential elections in Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan next year, and Tajikistan in 2013. It's not out of the realm of possibility that those countries may feel equally emboldened to follow the example that Kazakhstan is now setting and extend the mandates of their own leaders, or in some way allow for a continuation of those presidential mandates, perhaps by removing term limits, perhaps by also going the way of the referendum. What's interesting is that we see an increasing degree of brazenness on the part of these countries in flaunting the democratic ideal, where in the past perhaps there have been elections held or other electoral events that have been somewhat more surreptitious in their efforts to step aside from democratic norms. In recent days, and in the Caucasus as well, we see an attitude that is somewhat less concerned with perceptions in the West, perceptions in democratically established countries. and more direct and forward in terms of what they want to do and how they want to do it.
What impact could a positive result to the referendum have on U.S.-Kazakhstan relations?
Well, already the outgoing ambassador to the U.S. ambassador to Kazakhstan, Dick Hoagland, has gone on record to state that this is not within the parameters of what democratic states do, and expressing concern that this does set a bad precedent after, again, the hope generated by the year as chair in office. And I think that's something that's echoed now by other countries in the OSCE community. Will it seriously complicate U.S. relations with the country? We have to remember that the priorities of the U.S. and Kazakhstan can be argued to be energy and security, 1 and 2. Democracy has never been a top priority, has never been a critical point of departure in the relationship. It's a very important one. The U.S. wants to project its values onto emerging democracies. Certainly, it's now playing a more visible role in Kyrgyzstan, for example. But it's not the end-all with Kazakhstan. There are going to be very strong and close relations with this country in spite of this effort at extending the presidential term.